Hello everyone and welcome back. Today I'm going to be telling you about 5 wonderful, short, but very powerful books. I really love short books. I love long books as well, but I love when a short book can really pack a very strong punch and capture a lot in a very short page count. And I also think that they're very approachable and they can be just extremely powerful. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I was thinking about what my favorite short but powerful books are, and I gathered 5 of some of my favorites that I thought I would tell you about today. So the first one I fell in love with 2 or 3 years ago. Oh my gosh, and that is Notes from Underground by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I have a whole video, which I will link in the corner, where I first read and vlogged my experience of reading this book for the first time, and so I won't talk about it too much here because you can watch that video and hear me talk a lot about it in that video. It's one of those books that I think will never leave you. It's so powerful, and Fyodor Dostoevsky writes in a way that I think is so singular to him. And it's a very short book. This is actually 2 books, or 2 stories in one. It's Notes from Underground and The Double, but I'm specifically talking about Notes from Underground, which is about half of the book. So it's quite short, but extremely thought-provoking. It's one of Dostoevsky's most well-known stories. It's one of his best stories, and I think if you want to approach Dostoevsky, Notes from Underground is a really great place to start. I find this story and the main character, so hard to even describe. I think it's something that you just sort of have to experience when you read it. So yes, that is Notes from Underground. And then the next one I have, this book also still haunts me, and that is The Broken Wings by Kahlil Gibran. I got recommended this book by my friend Emma. I read this for a 24-hour readathon that we did together, and I think it was the one that she picked my TBR, and it was incredibly heartbreaking. It's this tragic love story. I'll read you the back because the back explains it very beautifully. So it says, The Broken Wings is a poetic novel written by Kahlil Gibran, first published in Arabic in 1912. There is a beautiful young woman who is betrothed to a prominent religious man's nephew, but the protagonist, a young man that Gibran perhaps modeled after himself, falls in love with her. They begin to meet in secret, and things ensue from there. It also says the book highlights many of the social issues of the time in the Eastern Mediterranean, including religious corruption, the rights of women, or lack thereof, and the weighing up of wealth and happiness. And I remember reading this book, and Emma was trying to warn me of its devastating effect on the reader, and it was just so powerful and moving and heartbreaking and beautiful. It's so lyrical. Like they say, it's a poetic novel. It's one of those stories that feels like the words are just blooming off of the pages, and it feels like music, and it's gorgeous. So a very powerful read if you're in the mood for a tragic love story, which is it's just so great. And then the next one I have is a recent favorite. I have talked about this author nonstop, so I apologize if you're getting tired of me talking about her or this book, but that is Foster by Claire Keegan. Claire Keegan is a fantastic Irish author, and this is her story about a young girl who is kind of mistreated by her family, and she has many sisters. The parents aren't very loving or very caring of her, and so the mother is going to have another child, and she gets sent away to their distant relatives, and she stays with them, I believe, for the summer. And it's about her relationship with the family that she's staying with and how she kind of comes into her own in this loving environment, because she gets the parental love that she's never really experienced before, and it's about her connection with these relatives. And it's so incredibly, again, like I've said about these two, so moving and also heartbreaking and also uplifting. And Claire Keegan, I think, is one of the first authors that I think of when I think of short but powerful writing. Just the way that she writes so succinctly and really packs a punch in such a short page count is unlike anything I've ever experienced from another writer. So I would highly recommend checking out Claire Keegan, either Foster or Small Things Like These. Those are my 2 favorites. She is just so so talented, and I love this book so much. I actually recently watched the movie adaptation, which is called The Quiet Girl, and I loved it. It was such a great adaptation. So highly recommend reading the book and seeing the adaptation if you're interested. I also tried to make sure when picking out what books I wanted to talk about in this video that they were all pretty different from one another, just in case you want a certain vibe. I just wanted to get like a book for every type of reader or every type of mood that you could be in, because all three of these are very, very different. And another very different story, the next one I recently read in a 24-hour readathon that I did with my boyfriend Leon, but I read If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, and I was blown away by this story. I still think about it, like I don't think a day has gone by that I haven't at least had one little thought about this book after reading it. I love James Baldwin. I've also read Giovanni's Room, which I recommended in another short books video. I just love talking about short books as well as longer books, but again, I feel like short books are more approachable and again can really pack a punch, which is why I'm making this video. We are following this young couple in New York. I want to say it's set in Harlem because I know that James Baldwin sets a lot of his stories in Harlem, but I don't remember if he specifically said Harlem. But it's about this young couple, Tish and Fonnie. Tish gets pregnant around the time that Fonnie gets wrongly accused of a crime and sent to prison, and it's about Tish trying to deal with this and trying to prove that Fonnie's innocent. Her family is also trying to prove he's innocent, and it's just about them dealing with the circumstance that they're in. And the back says, in this honest and stunning novel, James Baldwin has given America a moving story of love in the face of injustice. Told through the eyes of Tish, a 19-year-old girl in love with Fonnie, a young sculptor who is the father of her child. Baldwin's story mixes the sweet and the sad. Tish and Fonnie have pledged to get married, but Fonnie is falsely accused of a terrible crime and imprisoned. Their families set out to clear his name, and as they face an uncertain future, the young lovers experience a kaleidoscope of emotions: affection, despair, and hope. In a love story that evokes the blues, where passion and sadness are inevitably intertwined, Baldwin has created two characters so alive and profoundly realized that they are unforgettably ingrained in the American psyche. And I could not agree more. Like, I feel like they are now ingrained in my mind. I cared about them so deeply as I was reading, and they felt so real and so authentic. And the way that Tish viewed New York City and viewed the city in general, because I am a New Yorker and I went to university in New York City, and it was such a roller coaster of an experience, and just the way that she viewed the city, I felt it was very relatable and just so authentic. I just can't stop thinking about this book, and I felt the same way when I read Giovanni's Room. So I am so excited to read more James Baldwin. And then the last book that I want to tell you about, I actually don't have a physical copy. I was thinking about getting the cloth-bound version, but I don't think it's published in the US yet. I think it is only published in the UK right now, but my boyfriend has a copy of it, so I really don't need a copy, because I could always read his. I first read it when I was visiting Emma in Canada, so you can also watch me read this book in a vlog. We read a bunch of books for a 24-hour readathon. This was one of them, and that is Chess by Stefan Zweig. This book was unbelievable. Again, really short, really powerful. It is, of course, about chess. It is about these men, I forgot where they're going. But they're on a ship and they're playing chess and they're competing against each other, and someone who happens to be on the ship is the chess world champion, and they basically challenge him to a game of chess. And then this other character comes into play and it kind of turns, and there are some flashbacks that relate to some military intrigue, and I loved how there were aspects of war involved, and it made me look at chess in a very different way. My boyfriend does love chess, and so I'm familiar with how the game is played, and I'm learning. I'm not very good. The most beginner you can be, that's me. But I just found it so fascinating. I love books that are about a subject that maybe I don't know about very well. Another one that I am thinking about is over here, The Housekeeper and the Professor. The Housekeeper and the Professor talks about... That's another short and powerful book. That should also be in this video. They talk about mathematics and baseball. two things that I've never really been interested in, but the way that it's written is so intriguing and interesting, and it made me interested in it. And it's the same thing about chess. Anyway, my point is that even though I've not had a great interest in chess or mathematics and baseball, I love when a book can talk about a topic and make it interesting, even for people that aren't well versed in the subject. So that is how I feel about chess and The Housekeeper and the Professor, and it was just wonderful, and another book that I kind of catch myself thinking about sometimes just at random. So I loved it. And the character that kind of turns the story around, I found his story, again, really, really interesting. I'm trying to think of another word. Just what he goes through is honestly quite terrible. I don't want to say too much, but what he goes through is so difficult, and how he goes through kind of this like mind... I don't want to say too much, but it was just great. You just have to read it if you haven't. So anyway, those are the 5 powerful books that I wanted to tell you about today. I hope that you enjoyed, and I would love to know what some short but powerful books you like and would recommend. What are your favorite short but powerful books? I would love to know, because I'm always looking for recommendations, which is why I make these videos and why I love looking through your comments. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want to pick up any of these, if I've convinced you. I hope that I have, because they're just so great, and I would love to know what you think about them. So anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you very soon in another one, and as always, happy reading.